The following podcast is part of the Underdog Sports Podcast Network. For advertising information or to find more great podcasts, visit us at www.theunderdogsports.com and follow us on Twitter at RealTheUnderdog.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Atlantic Files, the number one podcast on the number one division in the NBA, brought to you by the Underdog Sports Podcast Network, joined by your hosts, myself, Alex Fishbein. We got Mike Bash. We got Dennis Clausen. What's going on, guys?
What's going on? Good, ready for another week, another episode. How about you, Dennis? You ready to battle again?
Right, let's do this.
Can't wait. And we always need fireworks. So without further ado, the first thing we're going to talk about, it happened pretty early last week after we were recording. And it was Danny Green who came on I think it was on a podcast. And he was talking about Sixers fans. He was talking about Ben Simmons, the whole thing that went on with them losing and everything in the playoffs. And his quote about Sixers fans was, quote, "I love our fans, but when things aren't going well, they can't turn on you. That's the one thing I would disagree with or dislike. They need to be riding with us regardless of how things are going." Obviously, Sixers fans, obviously Sixers fans and Philly fans in general have a very long history of being pretty crappy in general. But what were your guys' thoughts when Danny Green started to say all this?
Well, he's not wrong in his message. Like, you know, if you're going to be a fan of any professional sports team, you got to take the good with the bad. You can't only, you can't be a fair weather fan. And Sixers, Philly, it's very similar to New York. You know, if you're winning, they love you. You're losing, they hate you. And what are you shaking your head at, Dennis?
You finish. You could.
He's pointing out like how Philly fans are, and that's what you can't be. And his message isn't wrong, but that's never going to change. It's part of the city that they play in, and the fan base that you have. They're going to turn on you when you're Ben Simmons and you can't hit a free throw. You're going to turn on you when you're Danny Green and you're missing open jumpers. Like it's the same as New York. It's probably a northeast thing. You don't see that in Houston or Indiana, but you'll see that in the Northeast. And as much as Dennis wants to disagree with me, he knows I'm right.
Basically, what he's saying there is like he's basically like doing that praise sandwich with the Sixers fans. He's starting off with a positive, saying they're great, and then he's basically just exposing them for what they really are. They're not like New York fans by any means. There's no loyalty with Philly fans. Even if somebody plays good, there's most of them just won't even acknowledge it. And such as Ben Simmons, how just such a solid player he is over the years, and they have not acknowledged it. Why are you shaking your head for? Why? Because he can't shoot?
Yeah, Ben Simmons is overrated.
Okay. Well, that's a discussion that I guess we've been saving up for a while. I completely, the Philly fans had a big part of I think of why they ended up losing in the postseason, because I genuinely believe that the Philadelphia fans were so rotten to Ben Simmons and put so much pressure on this poor guy instead of being supportive of him. They just crapped all over him. This guy passed an open layup because the guy was so scared to take a shot. The Philadelphia fans should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. How they should be embarrassed of how they act and how they treat Ben Simmons. That guy is not going to come out and openly say that he wants out of there, but every night he's praying to God that he can get the hell out of there so he doesn't have to deal with them anymore. We're talking about a city where they have jail cells in football stadiums because they're chaotic. So
I think every city.
So I am so glad Danny Green came out and said that, because that has to be said. And New York fans aren't like that. New York fans have more class than that. But they need to, the Philly fans definitely need to get themselves in check, because that's not a way to support a team that you're hoping is going to be a championship contender. They totally crapped all over Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons gets no support from the front office. He gets no support from the fans. The guy just, no wonder why he can't make a shot. So
yeah, I mean, as said Philly fan, I will also say I'm very glad I am not a 4-for-4 Philly fan that a lot of them love to claim that they just like all four teams. I'm glad I have a break from Philly fandom when it comes to football, because I love these teams in Philly, and the Sixers are obviously like at the top for me. And there are so many times that it just pisses me off how dumb and how like just thick-headed Philly fans can be. Because all I see, I'm in like multiple different groups and like group chats and forums of different Sixers fans and whatever. And the moment Danny Green said this, they were all up in arms and everything and all pissed off. And they're like, oh, if he can't hit free throws and if he can't shoot or whatever, like we have a right to be mad. We have a right to call him out and all this kind of stuff. And then they go on these rants of like, we had to sit through the tanking teams with Sam Hinkie. We had to sit through all the injuries. We were with Ben for like 4 or 5 years now, and now we're getting mad at him. We went through Markelle Fultz and the Colangelos and all this. I'm like, 75% of you did not sit through that. 75% of Philly fans, when the Sixers started those tanking years, were not going to games, were not even watching games. They weren't invested in the team at all, but now they want to claim, oh, we went through this and that, so like we have the right to be mad and yell at him and scold him and do all this stuff. But like when myself, a couple others that I know, some of my friends were going to, like we went to the Memphis Grizzlies game at the time when the Sixers were 1-19. There was maybe 3,000 to 4,000 people in the stadium. We bought a whole row for $5. That's how much people were not going to the games. And so for a lot of Philly fans to claim that they were there through everything, there through thick and thin, is a lie. And the other thing is just like, Danny Green's not saying, look, you're supposed to support us no matter what. That's dumb. Like, he's not saying, look, let's go out and blow multiple 30-point leads and, oh, but still cheer for us. Like, yes, there are times you can get mad and boo and whatever it may be. But the thing he's saying is, you don't want to destroy your own player's confidence. Like Dennis said, you don't want to destroy a guy's confidence to the fact that he's even scared to take an open layup. And on top of that, I do wholeheartedly believe that Philly fans played a part in Markelle Fultz not growing at all. I mean, we see him go to Orlando and the guy looks worlds better already, even if he had his ACL injury this year. We also normally see a lot of people leave Philly and automatically get better. And Philly fans bitch about it all the time. They're just saying, they're like, oh, this guy left and he won a championship. This guy left and he did that. It's probably because the fans elsewhere actually support them through everything. And then they want to say, oh, well, he's too soft. Like Philly doesn't like him anyway. It's like, that doesn't help anything. That doesn't get anything accomplished. I don't care if like the player is offended that like you guys think he's soft. It's like, no, I want them to play the best that they can play. So I'm going to support them whenever they do the right things. And if something bad happens, it's like, oh man, like they can work on this, but it's not just, scold him for the rest of his playing career. There even was a point when John Collins on the other team, and I think I've talked about this, was hyping up the Philly crowd when Ben Simmons was at the free throw line. If the opposing team even knows that you're getting in your own player's head, and telling you to keep going, you should know that there's an issue with that. And Philly fans just got mad. Go ahead, Dennis.
I said that's a guy who can relate to get crapped out as John Collins. So
yeah, I mean, I crap on John Collins.
Yeah, you hate on John Collins for no reason, and he rightfully put Joel Embiid in a headlock on a dunk, and I was so happy about it.
The thing too that gets me fired up is when they drafted Markelle Fultz, they knew that he wasn't what
over Jayson Tatum.
Okay, but at the time that they thought that was the best choice, but they absolutely knew that he wasn't a good shooter. They knew that before coming in. They knew Ben Simmons wasn't a great shooter. But what's going on is that they're not acknowledging just how solid of a player Ben Simmons is. He doesn't score a lot. He's not a great shooter. We know that. He may not ever be a great shooter. However, he does so many other things so well that in today's NBA, people are judged on how many points they score. They're judged on, and the biggest measuring stick is whether somebody can shoot a three or not. I don't know how many times over the years I've heard Ben Simmons get criticized because he won't take a 3-point shot. If that's not what he does, that's completely fine. The guy's solid defensively. The guy can play multiple positions. The guy's a good rebounder. The guy's a good passer. What more do you want from a guy? The guy's not a scorer. That's not his role. And if you're expecting him to be a guy who's going to be consistently scoring in the 20s, 25, 30, then you need to surround him with players who are going to consistently contribute. And as good as Joel Embiid is, I don't ever want to hear this crap about Joel Embiid should be the MVP of the league over Nikola Jokic, because Joel Embiid can't even stay healthy for an entire season. So if any of the Philly fans are going to bitch and complain about anybody, it should be about Joel Embiid as much as it should be about Ben Simmons.
Well, I agree with you on that because I'm a big Jokic guy. That being said, Dennis, Ben Simmons is getting paid what, $35 million or something crazy, like 30, 25, 40, somewhere in that range.
Which they paid him. They paid him before they knew he was a crappy shooter.
No. They knew since they drafted him he was a crappy shooter. That's not a new development.
Right, but they still paid him.
Yeah, they still paid him, and that's
they knew what he was.
Right.
So he can dribble, he can pass, he can defend, he can rebound.
I said all that.
Athletic. Yeah, great. You know who else is all of those things? Giannis. And Giannis can't shoot either. But Giannis is dropping 40 in the NBA Finals, and in the last 5 minutes of a playoff game with your season on the line, Ben Simmons is sitting on the sideline. You can't tell me Ben Simmons is a great player. He's overrated, overpaid, and he's not good. I feel bad for Sixer fans because their process sucked. Like, they tanked to get a worthless number one pick. The guy is awful. Yeah. In transition, he's great. And when you're playing, the Sacramento Kings in November on Wednesday night, he's great. But you play a real team in a meaningful game, the guy never shows up. He has no aggression. He has no ability to shoot anything other than a dunk. And he's 6'10". I mean, okay, if he's that bad at shooting, get in the paint, learn how to post up, assist create offense out of the post. He doesn't even do that. So I don't know how you say a guy who's getting 6 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 assists is a great player, because he's not. He's overrated.
I mean, why does he get crucified though? Why does he get crucified though? Because he doesn't score.
Because he's getting paid $35 million a year to sit on the bench in the last 5 minutes.
But that's not his fault.
But that is his fault because he sucks.
Well, part of the reason too is you have these, and he's still a young guy. I mean, if you can look back when you were 24, how just sometimes you're fragile mentally. You don't have it all figured out, and when you have big pressure putting all that stuff on, of course the guy's going to be scared to death to take a shot. But I guarantee you, if you put Ben Simmons on, if you moved him to the Lakers or something like that, to where he didn't have all that pressure to score at least and could just do all the other things that he's good at, people would be saying their point of view on Ben Simmons would be completely different. And we've seen it all the time. I mean, how many times have we seen Ben Simmons get crapped on over the years? Or not Ben Simmons, Devin Booker get crapped on over the years, and now because he's in the finals, everybody's in love with him. You know what I mean? It's hypocritical, and I just don't think it's fair to the guy.
And I will even say this in the defense of Ben Simmons: it took Giannis a very long time to finally get to the finals. It took Giannis a very long time to get to the point where he is now. And even in his beginning years, the only difference to me is the fact that Giannis stayed confident and stayed working on everything, whereas Ben Simmons is starting to lose his confidence now. And I'm not going to say that it's fair to attribute that to Sixers fans entirely, because I mean, with Milwaukee fans, they were like, don't leave, please don't leave. Like, like they're begging him to stay. They're begging him to lead their team to a championship and then you look at Philly, who's just like, get this guy off our team right now. But I mean, obviously there's other external factors, whatever it may be. As Dennis said, when you're young, a lot of times you can be mentally fragile. And that just happens to be one of those times with Ben Simmons right now, especially with the fact that there were a lot of things in place to coddle Ben Simmons. I do think he wasn't challenged as much as he could have been, because a lot of guys were kind of just like letting Ben do whatever he wanted to do, which I don't know. Maybe if they challenged him earlier on, maybe that everything would have blown up earlier. Maybe it wouldn't have been the correct decision, but something could have been changed along the line. And on top of that, like, as you guys were saying, even if he's not counted on to score, we still see many high-level players that get paid a good bit of money to do things other than score. We see guys like Draymond Green. He gets paid a good bit of money to not really score. And essentially what Ben Simmons is doing right now is a more athletic version of Draymond Green, except Draymond Green does attempt threes. So
Ben Simmons could
supposed to be the co-star. Draymond Green is the clear third option when Clay and Steph are both healthy.
Yeah, but why does Ben Simmons?
If Tobias Harris, if Ben Simmons was the Tobias Harris, okay, I'd be fine with it. But he's not supposed to be that third guy. He's supposed to be that 1A. That's the problem. He's being paid to be the 1A.
Yeah, but that's another thing too, is they want him to be the 1A, but who says he has to be the 1A? He doesn't have to be. He can be a B and be just as solid and can, and that's the thing. Like, that would be the same thing as the Warriors fans getting pissed off because Draymond Green's not scoring 25 points a night. And they're doing the same garbage. They do the same garbage with Lonzo Ball. Oh, Lonzo Ball, he stinks because he can't shoot. Look at his shooting form and blah, blah, blah. Like, look at Andre Iguodala. That guy is a great defender. Everybody, I believe the Heat are still paying him $16-17 million a year, and he wasn't a scorer, and they were completely fine with that. So I think, Ben Simmons, basically, he needs a Xanax and he needs a hug, because this guy is just mentally, he needs a therapist. Like, you gotta start loving on this guy, because he's gonna fall apart if this crap keeps going on. And the Sixers fans will have nobody to blame but themselves.
Yeah, and my biggest thing is, I don't think don't get me wrong, he needs to work on his shooting, but I think the biggest thing he needs this offseason is, like you said, a therapist. I think he needs a sports therapist to help him get through all of the crap that's getting thrown at him, and just help him become a mentally tougher individual as well as a mentally tougher player. And I wholeheartedly believe if the Sixers kept Jimmy Butler and he was happy, instead of Tobias Harris, we would not be having this conversation about Ben Simmons.
Even Jimmy Butler knew. He's like, I gotta get the hell out of this place. It's cold. The weather sucks. These people are crazy. I gotta get out of here. Going to Miami.
Exactly. And the thing was, Jimmy Butler was the archetype of what Philly fans want. Like they want to cheer Aaron Rowan who dives into a fence and breaks his nose, but ultimately is like an okay player. But he went all out one time. And Philly loves Allen Iverson, and Allen Iverson was a great player, but they love him most of all because he fought through injuries and this and that. And then the funny thing is with Iverson, they talk about how, oh, the team wasn't molded enough for Iverson to win a championship. But then when you look at the teams that they've put around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, the only year they complained about how bad the team was around them was the last season when they had Al Horford and Josh Richardson in them. Otherwise, it's just kind of like, well, they should win. It should just be it. They should win. Like this year, they should have won. Everything was on the table. People got hurt. They should have won. I mean, Danny Green himself was hurt. Then your only shooter that was left was Seth Curry. But you're supposed to just win with that. So there was a lot of double standards going on. And I agree that Ben Simmons definitely needs a therapist. Sure, he might be getting paid more than he is worth, but that, as Dennis said, is not his fault. That's the Sixers who decided to pay him that much money.
I would take him over somebody else, which I don't think we need to get into, but I mean, the only thing Philly has going is they can make one hell of a steak sandwich, and those water ices, they go down smooth in the summertime. Damn water ices, man.
That's one I definitely cannot disagree with. But so let's move on from Danny Green. So we have a lot of things perking up with trade rumors. We have a lot of things going on with guys teaming up and everything. Before we get into Team USA and guys talking about teaming up, there has been a lot of rumors and reports about a couple guards being available. One of them being Collin Sexton. The other two that are said to be available are Dejounte Murray and Derrick White from the Spurs. So my question to you guys is, which Atlantic team should pursue Sexton and which Atlantic team should pursue Murray and or White?
I think the Knicks would benefit the most. I mean, they need a legitimate point guard.
This is true. I love
Dejounte. How do you pronounce it? Dejounte, whatever. I think it's Dejounte. Dejounte Murray. I love his game. I know he's had health issues and, you know, he's kind of been on like the brink of breaking out. But no, I've been a big fan of his game. So I think if there's any team in this division that should go after him, it's the Knicks. I think he's a good defensive point guard. His offense is coming around and he's one of those like steady Eddie kind of guys. And he's got length and I think he's like 6'5". So I think that would be a good fit.
What a basic answer. You're like the girls in the fall who wear like leggings and Ugg boots and drink pumpkin spice lattes.
I do not drink pumpkin spice lattes. You're the get off my lawn kind of guy. And Alex is just amused by all our jokes.
I mean, I just love seeing you guys go back and forth, to be honest. But if you're saying Dejounte Murray, the Knicks should go after him the most, who should go after the other two then?
Who is Derrick White and who's the other guy? I'm sorry.
Collin Sexton.
I don't know where Sexton fits. I don't know, like, wasn't there a rumor somebody was offering a trade for him, like Dallas or something? Or New Orleans?
I think it was New Orleans. I mean, there was also a rumor about the Knicks. And then there was one other one. I mean, I don't think any reports came out about the Sixers. People were just throwing those around. It wasn't an actual report or rumor. But I mean, there's been a lot surrounding Sexton right now.
I mean, there's an issue though with Sexton is that they forget that Kevin Love, which he has this massive contract left. He has a couple years remaining. And in order to move him, Collin Sexton is the bargaining chip to get this done. So any team right now that is going to have to deal for Sexton is going to also have to potentially take on Kevin Love, because the Cavs are going to try at all costs to avoid buying this guy out. They want to save money in order to keep Jared Allen. They like Darius Garland. It's obvious they want to build around him. So the only way that they're going to get this done is if you're going to move Love is by dangling Sexton. Even though I made fun of Mike, the Knicks are a team that are in a position to do that. And I think he would be a really good fit in New York, actually, especially with, the Knicks having issues with stable presence in the backcourt. He would be a good addition to that team. Depending upon too what's going on with the Celtics. He's another guy who would be on the radar for them, the Raptors. But I think the Celtics would be better if they ended up taking like a White or a Murray, something like that, because they, ever since they lost Kemba now, they have that void to fill. And I think both of those two guys have had solid games in San Antonio. Murray's a little more consistent, I think, but I think they would be both a good addition to Toronto's young, so they would fit in well. Boston's relatively young now, with the exception of Al Horford and things like that, so they would fit in well. But I agree with Mike too, surprising as that sounds. I think the Knicks would definitely be, but overall though, ultimately I think Kevin Love is gonna, no team is gonna be willing to take on that contract to Kevin Love, and ultimately he's gonna get bought out, and Sexton may just get moved just by himself.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the Knicks will always be like the number one answer for almost any point guard. As both of you have said, I do think I was going to bring up the Celtics as well. Actually, I think Murray would be a perfect fit for the Celtics, especially if they have to trade somebody like Marcus Smart in a deal to get him, just so your defense doesn't fully drop off, because Murray has been a great defensive guard on top of the offensive abilities he's shown. I mean, the man won me a fantasy championship, so I love Murray. But I also agree that, I mean, out of those three, if I was a GM of any team, I would probably rank them like Murray, Sexton, White. And it's no disrespect to White, but like his last two seasons have been pretty injury riddled. And I think he's the oldest of the three, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and Sexton, I mean, he's been growing every season, just came off his best season. I think he put up like 24 points a game. He's not the most distributing type of point guard, but again, decent defender, decent IQ. He's got a pretty good offensive game, and he's got a very good attitude and very good, like mental toughness to him, since we've been talking about that. And I would
surprise there.
What'd you say?
You caught me by surprise there. I did not realize Collin Sexton was averaging 24 a game.
Oh yeah. Yep, that was his most recent season. So he did very well for them. And he, like, if you put Collin Sexton next to another good guard, almost like they were doing with Darius Garland, because honestly, to me, I feel like Sexton fits more of a shooting guard role than a point guard, because Garland was the better distributor of the two. Not just, I mean, I don't know if it matches up stat wise, but from the handful of games that I've seen, it definitely looked like to me that Garland was the better passer and distributor. So if you put him next to any other good guard, I think you really unlock more and more of his talents. And as you brought up with Toronto, I think him and Fred VanVleet together would be very good. I think even if you put him on, him on the Sixers is one thing that a lot of people, like I said, have been passing around. But the only thing there is say you have Sexton there, there's not much ball movement happening there. Ben Simmons was the main person moving the ball around. So once it comes to Sexton, you're still gonna have your shooters and everything. You're still gonna have Tobias and Joel, but who's moving the ball around? I think that's your biggest issue when it comes to Philly. And I think for Philly, if you're looking at any of those guards in a potential Ben Simmons deal, you're looking more towards San Antonio. Especially because like Dennis said, if you're packaging Kevin Love, he's not fitting in Philly. There's way too much money, and he's essentially he's definitely going to be coming off the bench. And at that point, there's really no value behind it. I mean, he's nowhere near as good as he used to be. He's been pretty frail as well. So yeah, I just don't see that really happening in Philly. My biggest thing would be Murray to either Boston or Philly. Derrick White, I probably would say to either Toronto or Boston. And then I would say Sexton probably to the Knicks, as you guys were talking about too.
I think White would be a good like bench piece somewhere. And
Agreed.
I think too, if if you want to see somebody develop Ben Simmons, I mean, if he ended up in San Antonio, I guarantee you Pop will make a man out of him real quick and work on all the things that he needs to work on. But I don't even know why the Spurs would even contemplate dealing Murray. I mean, he's a good player.
I agree. I mean, the rumor is that Popovich loves Ben Simmons. So, like you said, I mean, if he does go there, I think he develops into probably what everyone expects him to be.
Now, here's my thing, though, right? Like, for Cleveland, you have Sexton, you have Garland, you have Jared Allen. Why would they trade Sexton just, like, I know they're not trading Sexton for, like, pennies. But if they're going to attach him to Kevin Love to get out of Love's contract, why not just buy him out? And because they have the third pick in the draft, like all they need is Mobley to get past 2. I think they have third. All they need is Mobley to get past 2, and they take Mobley. I mean, the thing that would suck is if Mobley goes 2, then they're stuck with 3 guards, unless they take like Kuminga or something. But they're stuck with Garland and Sexton and Green or Suggs, but. Isn't that necessary? It's not like they're close to competing where they're going to use the money saved from Kevin Love to go. Like they're not bringing in Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is I think that they're starting this exploration of deals sooner rather than later so that they know kind of what they can get for Sexton. And then in that case, if you do get stuck in the draft with your selection of those guards, you bring in an even younger one that's supposed to be, if not better, around the same as Sexton. And then on top of that, their rookie this past year was pretty solid, Isaac Okoro. I mean, he was pretty solid for a wing. And then you pair that, like you said, with Garland and Jared Allen, and you get Kevin Love off the book so that you can actually pay Jared Allen, because Jared Allen will also want some money when it comes time to re-up on his contract. And I think it just kind of starts there. And then it just gives you more wiggle room to get some better veterans around them, some better veteran backups that, right now you can't really sign anybody when you're paying Kevin Love it's like $35 million a year or something.
Yeah, he had the max contract or close to it. I think he signed I think it's like $30 million. I mean, I'm just looking at a report here. It says Heat, Knicks, Lakers, Pelicans, Pacers, and Thunder. I don't know, like the Heat aren't offering like maybe they're offering like Tyler Hero. Okay, that makes sense. The Knicks are not offering anything. They don't got anything worth offering that whatever they have worth offering, they're going to want to hold on to. Lakers are not giving you, unless they offer like Talon Horton Tucker, who's one of those guys that everyone thinks is better than what he actually does. Like, I think he's going to be a good player, but, like, he's in a weird situation. The Pelicans, unless you're working out a deal, like, with Ingram or something or future picks, like, I don't know what they're doing. Pacers, maybe. Thunder have, interesting because they have all those picks that they could offer. And Poca, whatever his name is like a young piece. But, I mean, I don't know, like, what of these teams are actually going to make a legitimate offer.
I mean, it's true. I
How
mean,
about a sign
if you're
and
the
trade Brooklyn and we'll give them Dinwiddie.
well, I was gonna say you could do like the Pelicans could do a sign and trade with Lonzo if the Cavs really want Lonzo.
The Cavs front office has no idea what the hell they're doing. So, I mean, you're going to trade a guy who averages 24.6 points, I think it was, or whatever, something around 24 point, whatever. He was scoring. He was a pretty, proficient scorer, and you're going to trade a guy like that. I mean, that and keep Darius Garland but yet, you wouldn't have this problem if you didn't sign Kevin Love to a extension a couple of years ago, even though you knew he was like 29 and he was past his prime and he was old. Not
And you
old,
knew
but
LeBron wasn't gonna re-sign either.
And you knew
yeah,
beat him.
I mean that if that was supposed to be your bargaining chip to keep LeBron to sign, you knew the guy wasn't going to stay. The guy bought a house in LA like 6 months before and had his kids enroll in whatever school out there, and you're going to use Kevin Love, a guy who is, I love Kevin Love. I think he's great, but you're going to use that as your bargaining chip, and now all of a sudden you want to trade a guy who averages 24 points a game.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
Get our act together here.
Yep.
Dennis
And
Clausen
so that
running these Cavs.
what'd you say, Mike?
Dennis Clausen should be running the Cavs. He'd have a bunch of guys who are 6'8" and can't shoot or taller. It'd be
So now it went from he's gonna sign a bunch of young guys to he's gonna sign 6'8" players who can't shoot.
Yeah, he doesn't see. I told you he doesn't know what he's talking about.
But anyway, that brings me to there's been rumors if there is a buyout, I guess, because I don't see it happening in a trade because it definitely doesn't line up money wise. Through all the Team USA stuff, they talked about Kevin Love to Brooklyn, which made me think as a Brooklyn fan and as the GM of Brooklyn, would you rather have Kevin Love or Blake Griffin?
It's a good question. I think I'd rather have Kevin Love. I say that because Kevin Love, to me, is a more like Blake Griffin has like developed this jump shot, right, in the last 3 or 4 years, but it's like still inconsistent from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kevin Love is more of a legitimate jump shooter. Not saying that's his whole game, but I'm saying like you trust him shooting a three more than you trust Blake Griffin. He was always a great rebounder, and I know his time on the court has come down a lot since he's gotten older, but his rebounding numbers aren't terribly off. I mean, his per 36 minutes last year, he averaged 11 rebounds, and if you look at the prime of his career, except for a couple outlier years where he was averaging like 15, he's still at 11, 12. So, his per 36 numbers the last few years were similar to what he was in his prime. Again, you're not asking him to be that same player. And I think you trust him shooting the ball. I think he's good in the offense. And I don't think the drop off defensively is that different. Blake's kind of old and his knees are shot. I mean, he's had plays here and there. He does have a little less size than Blake. But I could also, there's no what's the word I'm looking for? Like they could bring both of them in. Blake's getting like 25 million from Detroit next year. Blake can sign for the minimum. True. Like Blake has more than Blake's not playing for money anymore. He's got endorsements. He's got buyout money from Detroit. Unless somebody's going to offer Blake Griffin $15 million a year, I don't see why he wouldn't sign in Brooklyn for close to the minimum versus going somewhere for like a mid-level exception.
Well, he says he likes it in Brooklyn, so I could definitely see him staying in Brooklyn. And then Kevin Love, even as much as he has left, which isn't what he was, obviously, but I mean, the guy is a good 3-point shooter, which would fit in well in Brooklyn. The guy's still a better rebound than 96% of the people in the league. He's made his name off of rebounding. So he definitely is somebody who should be on the Nets radar.
I was just going to say about Kevin Love. His last year, his defensive rating was 1 point off his career best of defensive rating per year, and that was 2 years ago. His best defensive rating. Like he's not a bad player, and he hasn't like lost
True.
as much as we thought he's lost. It's just the fact that he's on a team that's not contending anymore, and he played with LeBron, and LeBron took all his numbers.
And a lot of those games that he didn't play, he was just not playing because he didn't fit in with what the Cavaliers were trying to do, which is absolutely dismantle the garbage that they've assembled over the past couple of years. So he's not as unhealthy. He's a kind of guy at this age. He needs to be he needs to be babied a little bit in terms of keeping him healthy, keeping him ready for the playoffs. But he's a guy, if he was on the floor for the Nets this season, he would have definitely been a huge factor, especially when it came to a guy who can actually move around relatively well, defend relatively well, rebound, which was something that, as much as, Joe Harris was struggling with his shot, you can't really blame them all for that, because you made him the second option really on Brooklyn because they had nobody left. So you really can't put that much pressure on Joe Harris. But so it would have been nice though if they had somebody else who can rebound him and get him some additional chances. So I definitely say it's probably going to end up Kevin Love is going to be bought out. And I definitely see him going to Brooklyn when the time comes. And I think he would be an excellent fit there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think, Kevin Love at the baseline is going to give you what LaMarcus Aldridge gave you when he was playing. So I think either way, I think he's going to be a good fit. And if you can get both, I say definitely get both of them. But yeah, I just love Kevin Love's fit in general.
And just to think too, if they manage to offload DeAndre Jordan for somewhere, and they get another player back for that, if they manage to pay Spencer Dinwiddie and they have him as a viable option as a sixth man off the bench, I don't think it's a role for Spencer Dinwiddie at this point. I think it's respect, and they're going to show him. The only way that they're going to show Spencer Dinwiddie how much they respect him is by paying him, which
Right.
They can do that, but they got to be willing to spend the money to do that. And of course, when you spend the money to do that, you're going to go up into, the Mike would know better, but the tax brackets and all that stuff. So I think if the Nets ended up having guys coming off the bench, like, Bruce Brown, if he ended up staying, if they had Kevin Love there, if they had Blake Griffin, if they had Spencer Dinwiddie coming off the bench, you have Nico Claxton. That's a nasty team that I don't think anybody in the league can even touch when it comes to depth.
No, I agree. That's a pretty deadly team, not even mentioning the big three that they already have. So I completely agree. And so just real quick before we get to our closing topic as well, Team USA loses to Nigeria in their exhibition, which was a shocker to everybody, obviously, because Team USA usually dominates all the time. I think the last time they played Nigeria was when they had Kobe and LeBron and Harden and all them, and they won by like 60, 70 points or whatever it may be. Obviously, a lot of things have changed in the international competition pool and everything. A lot of the international countries have gotten better. And Team USA themselves, they don't have the same top talent right now that they had in past Olympics, just not only because of the season being shortened, but like a lot of people were hurt, whatever it may be. And so one thing that has been coming out of Team USA practices and training and everything, not just the whole Kevin Love rumor, but Jayson Tatum and Bradley Beal, both from St. Louis, they've known each other since they were kids. I think they even played on the same AAU team or something like that. I remember reading. And a lot of things have been coming out about them possibly teaming up. They even asked Bradley Beal, like, hey, do you think people will talk about teaming up here, like at USA practices? And he was like, well, yeah, probably. We're all in the same room. We're all probably going to talk about it. So my question to you guys is, do you think Boston has what it takes to put a deal through to get Bradley Beal? And if they had to, would you give up Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal? And do you think that that makes them good enough to even get to, let's say, the Eastern Conference Finals?
I don't know. I mean, Beal is a better player than Jaylen Brown, but I don't know what they can add to Jaylen Brown to get the deal done without severely overpaying. Now, Brad Stevens is the new GM now instead of Danny Ainge, and we know Brad Stevens is very like analytically driven, so you have to look at the analytics of like, does acquiring Bradley Beal make sense versus holding on to Jaylen Brown? I don't know. It's one of those. It's weird because like, you don't really like. I feel like you don't see a guy like Jaylen Brown get traded in a Bradley Beal deal. Like Jaylen Brown's been with the Celtics for what, 4 years now, 5 years now. Like
About
usually when you make these big kind of like big trades like that, it's like guys that are young with high upside that like haven't started to peak yet, and a bunch of like picks, right? Like Jared Allen was a young high upside guy, he didn't reach his potential yet. LeVert is close, not saying talent wise, but like LeVert is kind of like, what he was getting, what he is, right? And Jaylen Brown's like, what Jaylen Brown is. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Like, so, but James Harden is a lot different than Bradley Beal. It's a different type of trade. I don't think the Celtics. There might be an avenue where they don't trade Jaylen Brown. I feel like you need a big three, but I just don't know what they would put together to get him. Unless it was some sort of like 4 first-round picks and utilizing like, there's guys like a bunch of young guys like Robert Williams and Peyton Pritchard and stuff like that. But like, I just don't know what the deal would be to get Bradley Beal. I think it would be a smart idea to acquire him and build that big three.
No pun intended.
What?
I said no pun intended. Sorry.
Okay. But yeah, again, I don't know what it would look like. I just couldn't tell you. Especially because they gave away their first round pick this year in the Kemba Walker deal. So like, is there an offer that like if you're the Wizards, you're gonna try to get a pick this year instead of future picks, like on top of that. At least in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, too, I don't know what the hell's going on in Nigeria, but look at all the guys that are so successful coming out of there. You know what I mean? So you got all the UFC, Francis Ngannou, Kamaru Usman, like all these guys. I don't know what's going on in Nigeria, but yeah. Anyways,
technically, Team USA's starting center could have played for Nigeria. Bam Adebayo is also Nigerian.
So, yeah, I mean.
The one funny thing was my buddy, we were talking about the game the other night, and he goes, something in the Nigerian lineup doesn't really make sense to me. It's like, okay, what is that? And he goes, I'm just going to list the names of the guys on the team. And he goes, KZ Akpala, Precious Achua, Josh Okogie, and there's like one other guy, like not Ime Udoka, but it was like Ike Diagu or some like Nigerian name. And then the last guy is Gabe Vincent. He's like, I don't think Gabe Vincent is really Nigerian. It's like Andre Bloch playing for the Philippines.
I think they were they recruited Gabe Vincent, but he was too scared to tell him he wasn't Nigerian because those guys would kick his ass. So he just decided to just say, yeah, I'm Nigerian. So just rolled with it.
I mean, it's funny to me which players are allowed to play for which countries and everything. And like, there's players you find out that have dual citizenships that you would have never even guessed.
Yeah. So basically getting back to I honestly don't think the Wizards are, I don't think that the Celtics need to trade Jaylen Brown. I think when you get I think if Beal gets to the point where he's just vocally unhappy and he makes it a point that he's not going to remain in Washington, or you know what I mean? So like, I don't think Brown would be needed to orchestrate a deal. I think something like that could get done depending upon how salaries matched up with like Marcus Smart, some draft picks, uh, Fournier, if they did a sign and trade type of thing, if that was an option. But I don't even think that needs to even be discussed. I think the Celtics could manage to do a Tatum, Beal, and have room for Jaylen Brown, but then it's all going to come down to who's going to run the point. And that's going to be a huge issue for them too, because right now they don't have anybody who's capable of doing that. Robert Williams is pretty established as the center as long as he can stay healthy. We've seen his progression, especially last season defensively on the glass. He had some health issues with his toe and things like that. So if the Celtics could figure out how to make that work, then it's really gonna that definitely would be a huge swing in terms of championship contenders next season. But then the Celtics or the Wizards will just have to acknowledge that the experiment they had with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, that it's not going to work, and then obviously they're going to have to deal him somewhere too, Westbrook, I mean. So it'll be interesting, but I think if they really wanted to get it done and Beal pushed hard enough, then it could get done. But that's my problem too with Olympic basketball. I think we're too more focused on off the court drama and what's happening than the actual play on the court. I just think it's a chance for guys to get together and kind of cause issues. You know what I mean? So this wouldn't have even been discussed if this wasn't an Olympic year, but now all of a sudden, because they're on the same court and they've had conversations, now we're talking about it. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting though to see what comes out of this. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. But if Bradley Beal ends up in Boston, it's going to be a total game changer for sure.
Oh yeah. No, I completely agree. And yeah, the Olympics brings all this kind of stuff on because ever since all the super teams started getting together, now if you have all these stars together on one team in one room on one court, then it's like, okay, so who's going to be the next super team to form now? So yeah, it definitely brings a lot of drama. And I mean, I hope that they're actually going to, pick up the play and not have to force another redeem team to come about. But
I miss the
I
days.
mean, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I miss the days when guys didn't do this stuff and they were just beating each other up, and now everybody's hugging and loving each other and things like that. Is as much as like I love like Russell Westbrook, he's not there to be your friend. I love when Pat Beverly pushed Chris Paul. Like, we need more of that. We need more intensity. We don't need this banana boat bull crap with LeBron and Chris Paul and Carmelo and who else was on that stupid banana. Dwayne Wade, was he on the banana boat?
Yep.
I mean, a banana boat. We're talking about a banana boat causing
get off my lawn.
These guys took a trip on a banana boat. Just think about
get it. We understand.
I mean, but as I'm saying it though, I mean, I can't believe that this is where we're at. Like, these guys are on a and now we don't. I just miss the days when the malice in the palace and guys beat the crap out of each other. We need more of that.
Dennis,
have
you never been on a banana boat?
The banana boat would sink if I was on a banana boat.
That felt like Dennis's version of the practice speech. He's like, not just friends, a banana boat.
I mean, if you think about how much they talked about that stupid banana boat for months, and they're still talking about a banana boat.
It was Wade, LeBron, Melo, and Chris Paul
on a banana boat, and they created a super team. You know what I mean? And now we got this. We're talking about, and I'm a Brooklyn guy. We know that, and I love having those three guys. Well, 2 out of 3 of them together, but. enough of this. Oh, this one's talking to this person. This one's talking. We need more physicality. We need guys beating each other up. We need more people staying loyal to places. We need, Damian Lillard. He made it a point to say a couple of years ago he'd rather stay in Portland. And the fact, I don't know, and this has nothing to do with the Atlantic Division, but Damian Lillard, I don't even know if he requested to, he's unhappy with the Chauncey Billups type thing, but I mean, kudos to him for wanting to stay loyal to a franchise. We need more of that back in the NBA. And that's why a lot of people are so turned off, because you get this stupid crap going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think the rivalries.
All right, I went on a rant. I apologize.
No, it's fine. I do think the rivalries and everything are better for the NBA. I mean, like I liked watching the Sixers versus the Wizards because Embiid and Westbrook hate each other. Like they go at each other every single time and taunt each other. Even like I like those kind of games because especially when it's in the regular season and you're in those like the dog days of the regular season where it's like midway through and the games still don't exactly mean as much and everything. Those rivalries make those games more fun, and they even make the playoffs more fun. Like when you watched Beverly versus Westbrook, like you just said, brought up both of those guys. Like those games were fun. Beverly and Chris Paul were always fun to watch against each other. That is something that I think the NBA does miss with all these guys, behind the scenes teaming up and whatever it may be.
Yeah, PJ Tucker and Durant were chirping the entire time. Like every game, those guys were going after each other. I mean, think of how much better things are when there's that level of intensity. And but when I feel like these guys are orchestrating to put teams together, I feel like they're not doing it they're just looking to win rings and stuff like that. I just don't. Somewhere along the lines, we lost the intensity and the just willingness to remain with an organization to win a ring. And that's why when anybody says to me that LeBron is greater than Michael Jordan or LeBron is even better than Kobe, I think you're on crack, because there's no way LeBron had to bounce around on 3-4 teams in order to get his rings, and he couldn't even do that. How many finals that guy's lost in?
LeBron's better than Kobe. Let's not.
No, absolutely not.
Let's stop.
Nope.
I'm gonna have to agree with Dennis on this one.
There is no.
At least I'm the only one here that knows the sport of basketball. At least
there is no way in hell that
Kobe. No, I haven't seen it yet. Obviously, it doesn't come out for a week. But there's only one person. There's going to be two people that lead the Toon Squad to victory: Michael Jordan, and I'm assuming LeBron James. Kobe Bryant didn't lead them. Tim didn't lead them. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't lead them. No, LeBron James and Michael Jordan.
First off, LeBron had to team up with Bugs Bunny and all them to actually win.
Yeah, but Michael Jordan had a version of Lola Bunny. They downgraded Lola Bunny for this episode, for this version of it. And he had Bill Murray.
God. I mean, there might be Bill Murray might still be in it for all we know.
Yeah, I mean, give me a break. I mean, Lola Bunny was like the best part of Space Jam.
It's true. I mean,
no, the best
as
part
a kid,
the best part of Space Jam is when Stan is digging a hole to try to get to Looney Tune World, and the golfer comes up to him and goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he has this giant crater, and he goes, "I'm fixing a divot." And the guy goes, "Oh, he's fixing a divot."
And everyone just accepted it.
Yep. You know how you guys probably don't. I know I golf. I know Alex plays volleyball, and Dennis probably watches golf. You don't fix a hole. You pour sand in it.
I did. All I know is I'm glad. The amount of kids these days who don't know who Bugs Bunny is. I mean, they
That's
can
true.
name every irrelevant TikTok star on the planet, and you get these people. They're like, where do we know him from? Oh, he's on TikTok. For one, I didn't even know what TikTok was until like 2 months ago, and then when you ask a kid these days if they know who Bugs Bunny is, and they say no, it's shocking. So it's nice to see Bugs Bunny back in the picture, even though he's with that bum LeBron.
No,
Dennis,
I agree.
Weren't you in the first Space Jam?
What'd you say?
Weren't you in?
He asked
Yeah,
if
I
you
know
were
you.
in the first Space Jam.
No, I know he has some joke to go along with
Didn't
it.
you
So
play Stan?
yes,
Oh my god.
I knew it. I knew that's where he was going. But LeBron isn't starring in Space Jam. Bugs Bunny is the star of Space Jam.
I think that's a good.
I would agree with that.
I think that's a good note to end on.
But yeah, as we were going to end with, are you guys going? Do you think it's worth to go see? Will you go see Space Jam 2?
I'm gonna see it on Saturday. I actually just saw Cruella, which was a pretty good movie. I don't know if you guys saw it. You know, the 101 Dalmatians, whatever. But I am gonna see Space Jam on Saturday.
Very dark, that Cruella was, very spooky. But I do know this: Shark Week's on all week, so it's a bad week to be a seal. Shark Week.
Shark Week is definitely iconic. I'll probably go see Space Jam as well, but Cruella I have not seen. I haven't kept up with many new movies. It's only been like Netflix series.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Ozark to come back out.
Ozark's a good one. I just finished up Lucifer, which I really enjoyed.
Well, before we become a movie and a TV show,
yes, that is it for us. We will catch you guys next week. Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Atlantic Files, the #1 podcast on the #1 division in the NBA. Make sure you drop a rating and review. That helps us out a lot. Let us know whose hand signals you like the most between Mike or Dennis. And make sure you share this episode with at least one friend. We all appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week. Peace.